Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here. So today I want to show you guys a few things about the skill tree so you guys can understand what kind of class you should be rolling. I know this is some real basic shit, but considering the fact that a lot of you guys are probably pretty new at Path of Exile, despite the fact that you watched the comparative channel over here, getting some advanced tips, I pretty much have the 1,400 point skill tree mapped out in my head pretty well, and I've kind of understood what the differences are between the classes after the hundreds and hundreds of specs that I've made. So I can kind of relay a lot of information to you guys. Those of you that have died need to re-roll. Those of you that consider making a new character just because, kind of what you should be doing in each independent league. So this game has like a bunch of leagues, and some leagues are permanent. Being that they don't actually change, and temporary leagues get flooded into them. So you have the default league, which is where you go if you die from hardcore or if you make a character, or if you die in a race, that's where you go as well. You have the regular hardcore league, which is pretty much just the hardcore league right now, and if your character survives a race, that's where it will typically go, and often if it's like 1 week race, something like that, that's where you'd go as well. So when you make a permanent character, as in like the kind of character you want to gear up, either by playing it or by playing the races and getting similar gear for the character, you kind of want one that doesn't waste many skills. And a lot of people talk about like the Duelist being like the worst class, the Ranger being a pretty bad class, but there's really only a few requirements that kind of designate how good a class is in the long term. Before I get to how good the classes are in the long term, you kind of have to understand how good the classes are in the short term. So when you do it like a 3-hour race, when you do like a day race, 2-day race, maybe even a week race, the things that are really important are how easy it is to get started with no gear. So how available are like the HP nodes and certain damage nodes and certain big nodes like blood magic, stuff like that. And two would be, what kind of quest rewards do I get for the kind of build that I want to make? So if it's, for instance, if it's like a 3-hour race and you want to make, like a spellcaster that uses freeze pulse and stuff, you're not going to make a marauder because the marauder is not going to get freeze pulse. It's not going to get any of the support gems that you're going to need to make freeze pulse good. So that's kind of stuff that I'm talking about. In the 1 week race, it's kind of a little bit more dynamic, but if you're not playing in a big group at the start, you may want to coordinate that so everyone has the skill gems that they need, where in some cases you might be able to make a marauder caster, but you need to know that ahead of time so you don't screw yourself over right at the beginning. That's kind of how it is in the shorter races. But in the permanent league, you kind of want to look at classes that don't have wasteful points. You kind of want to understand where classes are placed on the skill tree, and you kind of need to understand the benefits of going to both ends of the class. So those are really the big ones. So I'm going to bring up the skill tree here and show you guys what I'm talking about. Alright, so this is the skill tree. I just made a level 1 ranger. Basically the first point is wasted skill points. So the biggest one is the Duelist. This is where the Duelist starts off. The Duelist is the worst class in the game for a few reasons. So the first 2 points, if you start with if you start in the melee side, are 10% melee damage nodes. Now, when you look at the Marauder, he starts with a 12 and goes to an 8, which is also pretty bad. When you look at the Templar, starts with a 12, goes to a 10, and then goes into the HP line. So the problem with the Duelist is that he has the absolute worst damage skill. Look at this: 10 melee physical, 10 melee physical, 4 attack speed, 4 attack speed, 6 physical. So the first 2 10 nodes are okay, the next 3 are terrible, but honestly, if it was just a 10% node by itself in the skill tree, you likely wouldn't get it anyway. It's more important, at least in the hardcore league, to get some kind of hit points first. Now, if you don't go that route, you can go through attack speed, but then 4% attack speed, 6% projectile damage, or 4% attack speed. Again, very, very low nodes. And you compare that to, say, the Shadow. So Shadow also has a 6% attack speed node. Instead of 4% attack speed, it has 3% movement speed, which in my opinion is a little bit better, overall to a character that is. But then you have 8% projectile damage. And then you end at a 12 attack speed, 20 dex node, instead of a 30 dex node. So, if you count like how strong the beginning is, as a Duelist, you're going from, is 10 dex worth 12 attack speed? No way. You're also getting less projectile damage while you're doing it. So that's one thing to look at, the starting point. The Ranger has some pretty weak starting points as well, but the Ranger has the advantage that it can go to both sides of the tree quite effectively. So what does that mean? Well, that means there's a lot of junk to connect the two sides of the tree typically. For the ranger, it's not so bad if you go dual wield or shield, because you can kind of go through one side and connect it through there, bam, 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 no problem. But if you don't do that, if you don't do the specific case, which sometimes exists, if you want to make an archer, for instance, you can get 6 attack speed, 12 accuracy, 8 projectile damage, 8 projectile damage, 15 projectile damage, 20 dex, and then you can start over here and go evasion, 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 get to iron reflex and get to the good stuff. So the advantage for the ranger becomes if you use attack speed, accuracy, projectile damage, projectile damage, projectile damage, then your efficiency is very good, because while a lot of the ranger specs that use that kind of route end up going to the beginning of the marauder tree, a lot of people don't go marauder, because if you start a marauder, while you can get all the way here, all the way to the base of the ranger tree, you won't be able to get on the other side, so you won't be able to get these nice projectile damage nodes. So that's kind of the thought process behind making a ranger. Now, when it comes to permanent leagues, these are the the two most important factors. How efficient is it at the start, and is it important to go to both sides? But also there's the other thing. The other thing is that if the game changes, which it will, it hasn't changed at all yet since the release, but it will. If the game changes, how adaptive is your class to change? So let's say you decided to go bows, and let's say you decided to go ranger for the advantage with the projectile damage. But let's say they nerfed like the most overpowered bow skill in the game. Well, I don't know, maybe chain lightning arrow, right? Maybe just chain in itself. And let's say that you don't want to be a ranger anymore in terms of pew pew bow style. You want to be Xena warrior princess sword action. So if you want to be Xena warrior princess, well, it still may be pretty good. But let's just say they nerfed that shit too, and you wanted to be a caster. If you're a ranger, you're kind of screwed. So the thing that I really look at is class diversity, and it really encourages me to play a Templar in most cases. And the reason being is a Templar is very, very good, because you can start with mana regen, go elemental damage. You can start melee, go melee damage, and go to the melee side, go to the dex side. You can start caster, like I said, go all the way over there. And the nodes at the beginning are so strong. You have the catalyzed nodes, you have discipline and training, you have prestigitation, and literally everything around the Templar is very, very strong on both ends of the caster side and the melee side. And the thing is, when it comes to bows, the highest damage you're going to get from bows is stacking elemental nodes, and the Templar can do that. So essentially, the Templar can be absolutely anything in the game with very, very little waste in some cases, and in others, no waste at all. Other really strong classes, in my opinion, include Marauder, because he starts with life nodes. So while a Marauder won't be a very good CI character, the Marauder will be a very good everything else character, essentially. So Marauder is very strong on that point. Duelist is very weak. The starting point is very weak. The flexibility is really bad. You can't really be a Duelist caster very easily without wasting a lot of points. So Duelist is just garbage. Ranger is okay. They're very good for the ranged ability because they have the perfect aim talent, but overall they're not very flexible either. You can go melee, but it won't really be as effective if you go like a two-handed melee spec. And if you go caster, again, it's a little bit rougher than others because you waste more points. Shadow is pretty good. The main thing with Shadow is you're not able to go two-handed very easily. But pretty much everything else is on the table. You can go life, you can go CI, you can go archer, you can go melee, you can go caster. So Shadow is very, very strong on that front. And then you have Witch, of course. Witch is pretty good, but it's mostly pretty good late game. Witch is a very poor starting character because the life nodes at the beginning are very scarce. So if you go Witch, you're kind of forced into going caster, but if you go caster, it's a very efficient caster as opposed to some of the other specs. So you kind of have that going for you. And if you go summoner, there's no better. So all in all, in my opinion, if you want to play the permanent league, if you want to kind of have a class that can take a few hits on the nerfs and the game changing and in the dynamic changing of the game, you probably should be looking towards Marauder, Shadow, or Templar. Those would be my top 3 picks, and hopefully you guys have learned a few things. Make the best character the next time you die in hardcore, and good luck, guys. See you tomorrow.